Donald Trump is raring to become the US president again, unless Joe Biden can stop him in his tracks. But do you know who is afraid of a second Trump presidency? Of course, his detractors in the United States and America's geopolitical rivals. But do you also know that the prospect of a second Trump presidency has sent blood pressure of some of America's closest allies upwards? Hello and welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Munmun Bhattacharya. Let's connect the dots of Donald Trump's disdain for NATO and NATO's discomfiture with Trump 2.0.
But one of the heads of the country stood up and said, does that mean that if we don't pay the bills, that you're not going to protect us? I said, that's exactly what it means, exactly. I'm not going to protect you.
Any suggestion that we are not standing up for each other, that we are not going to protect each other, that does undermine the security of all of us, increasing the risks, and therefore it is so important that we, both in actions but also in words, communicate clearly that we stand by NATO's commitment to protect and defend all allies.
So what exactly is Trump's problem with the NATO? Before we come to that, let's first quickly see what is NATO. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in short NATO, was formed in 1949. These 12 countries formed it. Its aim was to block expansion by the Soviet Union, a group of communist states that included Russia. Its most interesting aspect is this: Article 5 of NATO's founding treaty. It says, an attack on any member state calls for collective response by all. This has a deterrent effect. NATO does not have an army of its own, but member countries can take collective military action in response to crisis. Today, this is how NATO looks. So how did NATO expand? After Soviet Union's collapse in 1991, many Eastern European countries joined it. Albania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Romania, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia came in. Also, Sweden joined NATO recently. And what about Ukraine? Will it join NATO? NATO says that it is inevitable, but not until its war with Russia ends. Russia, though, has consistently opposed the idea of Ukraine joining NATO. It fears it would bring NATO's forces too close to its own territory. So let's now come back to the question we were asking earlier. What exactly is Trump's problem with NATO? It is the money, actually the lack of it. Since NATO's formation, the US has been its largest contributor. In 2006, a target was introduced for each NATO member state. It had to spend 2% of its GDP on defense. But it was not until Russia's first attack on Ukraine in 2014 that NATO countries began to actually increase their expenditures. So from 2006 to 2014, only 4 countries, Norway, Poland, Estonia, and Albania, closely maintained the GDP share. All other member countries showed a declining trend. Today, Poland, that borders Russia, spends 3.9% of its GDP on defense. That's more than 3.5% of GDP that the United States spends. The UK spends just above the 2% target. By the end of 2023, only 11 of the 31 NATO members had made good on this commitment. France was still slightly lagging behind at 1.9%, and Germany even further behind at 1.6%. Now, NATO says 18 countries are expected to meet the 2% level this year. That still leaves 13 NATO countries out of the net. But this is not the first time Trump has warned NATO. During his presidential term from 2017 to 2021, Trump wanted to reduce aid or withdraw aid to NATO. His national security advisors had even proposed that only those NATO members who meet their set defense contribution threshold should be allowed to avail of the protection under Article 5. Back in 2018, President Trump was so angry with many European nations because of their failure to spend on defense what they had agreed to, that he threatened to pull the US out of the NATO alliance altogether. And what impact did that have? Well, it had some of the impact that Trump desired. Military chiefs throughout NATO were aghast. They thought that if the US were to pull out of NATO and abandon Europe to fend for itself, it would so severely undermine the alliance that it would cease to exist. in its present form. The shockwaves it sent and Russia's actions in Ukraine put together prompted some NATO countries, especially Germany, to promise to raise their defense spending. Today, the larger stand from Europe is to fortify Europe's defense capabilities from within and cut down its reliance on the United States. Still, Trump's disdain has the NATO worried. Why is that? Because Trump's latest warning has come at a time when Ukraine's summer 2023 offensive has failed. Russian forces remain firmly in place in the areas that they have occupied. They're slowly pushing back the Ukrainians in the Donbass. Moscow has moved its economy onto a war footing. It is allocating about 40% of government spending to defense. It is churning out low-quality weaponry in vast numbers in the hope of overwhelming Ukraine's defenses. So Russia is pouring money into its war machinery in Ukraine and its defense sector as a whole. Russia also has more ground combat vehicle capacity and nuclear warheads than NATO. This asymmetry apart, some NATO members fear they are next in Russia's line of fire. Poland and the Baltic states are convinced that once President Putin has achieved his war aims in Ukraine, then Russia will rebuild its army and make a move on their countries, perhaps as soon as within the next 3 years from now. All of them have placed much faith in the long-standing deterrent value of Article 5. So if Moscow decides to send tanks across its borders into, say, Estonia, then this is supposed to trigger a massive collective response from NATO. But if Trump were to operationalize his threat, then the United States won't pay to defend Estonia or any other country that does not pay up. So will Trump, if he becomes US president again, withdraw support from NATO? Probably not, but if he does withdraw because the target GDP is not met, then there can be severe consequences for NATO. It will mean 1. NATO will lose military support from the United States. 2. It would take NATO decades to replace the military contribution of the United States. And 3. NATO will need another leader post the United States. Be that as it may, what should one read from Trump's posturing against more American aid for Ukraine? Nearly half a year has passed since the White House asked the US Congress for another round of American aid for Ukraine. Since then, at least 3 legislative efforts to provide weapons, ammunition, and support for the Ukrainian army have failed.
And I say to the House members, House Republicans, you got to decide. Are you going to stand up for freedom? Or are you going to side with terror and tyranny? You're going to stand with Ukraine, you're going to stand with Putin. Will we stand with America or with Trump? Republicans and Democrats in the Senate came together to send a message of unity to the world. It's time for the House Republicans to do the same thing, to pass this bill immediately.
At Trump's behest, many Republicans in the US Congress are blocking military aid for Ukraine. But the Republican Party is divided on this. Divisions in the Republican Party are also borne out by how 22 Republicans supported in the US Senate a foreign aid package that included $60 billion in funding for Ukraine. But Trump's opposition to more American aid for Ukraine may have more to do with political exigency and his keenness to tout Biden's foreign policy as a failure in poll season. Trump evidently wants to show Biden in poor light as a leader that has presided over chaos and failure stretching from the southern border with Mexico to Kabul and Kiev. Even if Trump becomes president again, a decision on Ukraine funding may not be an easy call for him. That's because the American electorate is divided on this. A Pew Research Center poll has found that nearly half of Republicans opposed more Ukraine funding, but it also found that only 31% of all Americans believe that the United States is providing too much aid to Kiev. So can a second Trump presidency see the United States pull back from the world? That's a reminder of US withdrawal under Trump from the Iran nuclear deal, certain trade pacts, and the Paris Climate Agreement. If the United States indeed steps back under Trump 2.0, will it leave a void for other powers to fill? We will need to wait to know that. Time for a breather on connecting the dots. Is crypto the future of digital money? And are we ready for it? We explore that next.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
There has been a lot of buzz around Bitcoin lately, and for good reason. Its value has skyrocketed this year, reaching a 2-year high in March 2024. In fact, Bitcoin has already increased in value by 50% so far this year. This rally comes after the US finally allowed the creation of special investment tools called spot Bitcoin ETFs. Here, ETFs stand for Exchange Traded Funds. These were launched only earlier this year. They work like regular stocks but represent ownership of Bitcoin. This made it easier for more people to invest in Bitcoin, which caused the price to go up. So in other words, we are seeing Bitcoin's dramatic comeback. But before we move further, let's understand what is a Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. It is a type of money that is completely virtual. It means it doesn't have a physical form like coins or notes. In other words, you cannot keep a cryptocurrency or Bitcoin in your pocket or purse. Rather, it is an online version of cash. You can use it to buy products and services. You may think this already exists like UPI or even internet banking, where you can have cashless payments or transactions. But this is not the case with Bitcoins. Each Bitcoin is actually a computer file. You keep your Bitcoin in a digital wallet on your phone or computer. Every single transaction is recorded in a shared database called the blockchain. The transactions are anonymous. They happen without revealing who sent or received the Bitcoin. Now imagine a public notebook or ledger where everyone can see the history of transactions. This notebook is special because it's made up of pages locked together called blocks. To add a new block to the system, one needs to solve a tricky maths problem like a complex puzzle. Once solved, the new block gets added to the end and everyone can see it. New coins or Bitcoins are created as a reward for solving these puzzles and adding new blocks. People and businesses called miners compete to solve the puzzles and earn these new coins. So the more they work on solving the puzzles, the more coins are released into the system. But this mining is not as easy as it sounds. People set up powerful computers for mining. It consumes a lot of electricity just to get a Bitcoin. Now here is a catch. There is a cap of total blocks. It means the total supply of coins is fixed. That number is 21 million coins. And when this number is reached through the mining process, there comes this event which is called Bitcoin halving. This event comes every 4 years. In Bitcoin halving, the reward for mining a new Bitcoin is halved. This in turn discourages new Bitcoin production. Presently, more than 19 million Bitcoins have already been mined. If you do the calculations, less than 2 million Bitcoins are left to be created. So the time has come to discourage miners from creating new coins. Currently, miners are rewarded 6.25 Bitcoins, but after the next halving, the reward is set to be cut to 3.125 Bitcoins. You may wonder, if the reward is halved, doesn't it create loss to the miners? Certainly not. When supply goes down, price goes up. Though the number of coins is reduced, the value of each coin increases significantly. Historically, the value of Bitcoin surged shortly after previous halving events. The last halving event was held in 2020. The next one is expected in April this year. So let's dive into history and see how Bitcoins came into existence. For this, let's go back to 2008. The Bitcoin white paper was published by Satoshi Nakamoto. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? No one knows. Many believe it is a fake name. Some even think there could be more than one person behind the creation of Bitcoin. There are also legal battles over Bitcoin invention. An Australian computer scientist, Craig Wright, claims he invented Bitcoin. Whoever the creator is, the idea brought a whole new world of crypto. Bitcoin may be the trendsetter, but there are others like Ethereum, Binance Coin, XRP, Tether, and many others that float in the crypto wave. Bitcoin also has an influential fan base. Tesla founder Elon Musk is one of them. Though not many shops accept Bitcoins, some do. In October 2021, American multinational fintech firm PayPal allowed its users to buy and sell Bitcoins. Now, the most important thing with Bitcoin is its decentralization. It is not regulated or controlled by any government, financial institution, or bank. So there is no regulation. Many get attracted to Bitcoin because of this. However, the absence of regulation in turn elevates the risks. But that is changing. See this report on what the UK plans to do. Here's another on Taiwan's regulatory plans. Which are those countries where Bitcoins are allowed? Well, the legal status of crypto is different from country to country. In 2021, Central American nation El Salvador became the first country to make Bitcoin an official currency. Bitcoins are legal in countries like the United States, UK, Canada, Germany, Australia, and many others. Some countries have even banned it altogether, like China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Algeria, Bolivia, Morocco, Saudi Arabia, and Tunisia. But restrictions are hard to enforce, and crypto exchanges have generated tens of billions in revenue from countries with cryptocurrency bans. Many countries have so far taken a relatively limited approach. For instance, majority of countries in the European Union have opted for a soft regulatory framework for cryptocurrency. India's cryptocurrency bill that is yet to become law aims to regulate the cryptocurrency market in India. In September 2023, the International Monetary Fund told G20 nations that they should not make cryptocurrencies legal tender in order to preserve their financial stability. So what challenges have the dizzying rise of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies created? Cryptocurrencies have given rise to a new set of challenges for governments to contend with, including concerns over criminal activity, environmental harm, and consumer protection. And that's why governments are making rules now to regulate the emerging sector. Now, should you invest in Bitcoin? Just like other cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin is a highly volatile asset. Sometimes its price fluctuates from 5% to 10% in a single day. There is no guarantee it will retain its value. We saw how Bitcoin plummeted in 2022. Also, unlike traditional investments like stocks, you don't own any physical asset with Bitcoin. So investing in it is a decision only you can make considering all the risks involved. It's important to do your own research and understand the potential downsides before investing. So is Bitcoin the future of digital money? Well, cryptocurrency including Bitcoin is still in its initial stages, so it is early to say. But it is definitely a player that is making inroads. Time for another breather on the show. Is there a whole new world out there, deep under the Pacific? We unravel this mystery next.
Turning crisis into opportunity, transforming ideas into action, stories of real change, tales of sustainable solution.
This series is going to tell stories of such changemakers.
Watch Changemakers on DD India.
Life is different here. It's vibrant, animated, and mysterious. Welcome to the world of the deep sea. When we think about the deep sea, the monstrous sharks or the colorful starfish rule our imagination. Much of the credit for it goes to movies like Deep Blue Sea, The Meg, Jaws, or 47 Meters Down. But in reality, the deep sea is enormous. It's a hidden world out there beyond what we can think of. Imagine coral forests swaying like silent trees, sponges blooming like glass gardens, and spiky urchins that resemble cacti. It seems like a desert put underwater. Scientists from Schmidt Ocean Institute deployed a robot 14,000 feet under the sea off the coast of Chile. And what did they find? Probably hundreds of species never seen before. Have you ever imagined a fish walking? Probably not. Then meet this walking fish. It has googly eyes and red crotcheted skin. Its modified fins allow it to walk on the sea floor. Hold your breath, there's much more. Lobsters with beady eyes and barbed legs. Ghostly white sponges with intricate structure. Finding new creatures in the Southeast Pacific reveals a whole new world of ocean life we never knew existed. The Southeast Pacific is a geologically active region. Scientists believe the hydrothermal vents in the region help sustain a wide array of life. Scientists are analyzing these animals' body specimens and genes to determine whether these creatures are truly new species. The explorers did not just find amazing creatures, they also mapped 10 underwater mountains called seamounts of South America, including 4 brand new ones never seen by science before. These mountains stretch all the way to Easter Island. Ocean experts say most of these animals have not been seen anywhere else on Earth. But here is something for us to ponder. Deep sea mountains in international waters face the threat of overfishing and mining. But there's hope. Ocean protectors are fighting to create a protected area under a recent United Nations treaty. This would help safeguard these mountains and the amazing creatures that call them home. This is part of a global effort to protect 30% of our oceans by 2030. The deep sea holds countless secrets waiting to be unraveled. Who knows what other hidden wonders await us in the darkness? Well, that's all in this edition of Connecting the Dots. We'll see you next week with more raging issues that touch our lives and imagination. Goodbye for now. From all of us in the Delhi newsroom, take care and stay safe.